Hello everyone, Ben here, and today I'll be teaching you how to conceptualize an origin for the Minecraft Origins mod. Now, I'd just like to mention right in the beginning here, I will not be teaching you how to create an origin with code, but simply how to make the idea of one. You can then either learn how to code one, or ask a friend who knows how to. If you would like me to cover how to create origins besides just the concepts, let me know in the comments, please. Okay, let's begin. So we got some things to consider, first of which is possibilities. Here's the thing. Not everything is possible. And although one of my biggest policies is that anything is possible, you have to understand that when dealing with code, we're dealing slightly with math, and mathematically, not everything is possible. So let's keep that in mind. When making your concept, think about this. Will it be possible for me or another person to actually make this? Not only between our level of expertise, but also just, is it even possible in the first place? That's a thing to keep in mind. Now, another thing is balance. Now, I know. Listen, I know, okay? Unbalanced origins, overpowered origins, just anything that makes you really powerful is fun, right? It's really fun. Have a look, for example, at this. This is the Triangulon, an origin that I made back in the day before I really knew how to balance things, and you can fly with creative flight with it. Look at that. No fall damage. You can fly around with creative mode. You can shoot an arrow. Look at that. Just a bunch of shulker shells too. But after a while, being super overpowered, it's not so fun. After a while, you kind of realize, hey, I'm not having fun here, and anyone else who you'd be playing with wouldn't really be having fun either. So balance is a good thing to keep in mind. Now, the theme. The theme is another big thing to keep track of. When you're making an origin, generally, it's not going to be a collection of random powers, right? You're going to have a theme that ties it all together. Like, let's say, if you want an origin that you can teleport around and do a bunch of fun stuff with that, you'd have some kind of Enderman or End-related thing, and then have powers based off of that specific theme. Now, of course, you don't have to do that, but if you're gonna have a theme, make sure that the powers kind of fit with the theme. And this can even just be done by tweaking the power names or descriptions to just make them seem like they fit a little better, even if the powers don't really fit themselves so well. Format. Now, when creating an origin concept, you kind of want to keep track of everything that you've come up with so far. And, I mean, keeping it all in your head isn't really the best idea. Here's a format that I like to use. You got the origin name, and then the description. Then you have the icon. Now, what is the icon? Well, when you press O by default, or when you're just in the origin selection screen, you'll see there's a little icon there, right next to the origin name. So, that's the icon. If you leave it blank, there just won't be anything there, but you can pick a nice little item or block or just anything within the game, including modded ones, to just, you know, be your little aesthetic thing. You should also have the impact. Impact is this right here. It's based off of 3 bars, and it basically determines how much it will affect your gameplay. Okay, pretty simple. Then you have the 3 powers: buff, neutral, debuff, which we'll go over shortly, and then if you have any, side notes. And finally, there's flexibility. You need to be aware that sometimes things don't work out, and if an idea that you have just isn't going to work, you need to be able to have the flexibility to just change some stuff around. It's always good to have some backup ideas, like, okay, this is a cool power, I want to go with this, but if it doesn't work, I have a backup at least. Okay? That's a good thing to have. Now let's go over the powers. You have buffs. Buff is a thing that helps you. It's pretty simple. It's just something that helps you. Neutral is something that doesn't affect gameplay, so just purely aesthetic, or is a positive and negative in one. And the debuff is something that hinders you. Pretty simple. Now, there are some types of powers, just some subcategories within this. For example, we have conditioned powers. An example of a conditioned power would be resistance when submerged in water. Okay? So basically, when a condition is met, you are given a power. And a power, it can really just be anything. It's just something passive, but if it's conditioned, then it's only passive under that condition. It can be good, it can be bad. In this case, I'm making a good one, but it could also just be wither when submerged in water. Now, an example of passive power is a power that you constantly have. Doesn't matter what conditions are met, just as long as you exist. And an example would be constant luck effect. Active abilities are an ability, not a power. Active ability is something that activates when you press an ability key, which can be any key, really. A good example of this would be press primary, you shoot a... Right? Pretty funky. But these active abilities can be conditioned, be a conditioned ability, which means you have to meet a condition to actually use the ability. For example, I could launch myself by pressing secondary, but no, there's a condition needed. Only when I am on fire can I launch myself. And now I can no longer do it. Now let's go over an example of an origin concept, and I'll be using one of my most successful origins, which is the land shark. So here we have the format, name, description, icon, impact. Right? The impact is determined on how much it affects gameplay, like I said before. If you're unsure of what to do for the impact, just see if your origin is similar to another one that exists. Check out what its impact is, it might help. So, the land shark is an aquatic type origin, and most aquatic origins have an impact of 3, and therefore, impact of 3. Let's look at the powers here. We've got gill lungs, you can breathe on land and in water, which is a passive power, because there's no condition here, you can just breathe everywhere. Razor teeth, you deal +3 attack damage, also a passive power. There's no condition needed for this. Lunge. Primary when submerged in water. Lunge forward, 30-second cooldown. Now, cooldowns are part of any ability. Having a cooldown does not make it conditioned, but this ability can only be used when you're submerged in water, meaning it is a conditioned ability. Speedy Boy. You get Dolphin's Grace when submerged in water. This is conditioned when submerged. Notice how it says when or if. It generally means that, haha, only when this condition is met do you receive this power. Aqua Affinity. You may break blocks underwater as others do on land. This is a passive power. There's no condition needed to be met. It doesn't say that when you're underwater, you may break blocks underwater as quickly as people do on land. It's just always. You can just break blocks normally everywhere. Like water. When underwater, you do not sink to the ground unless you want to. This is conditioned. Moving on to the downsides. Carnivore. Your diet is restricted to meat. You can't eat vegetables. This is passive. This is a passive power. Greedy. You get hungry 1.5 times faster and get hunger on land. So this doubles down as both conditioned and passive. Because you get hungry on your own, just faster without any condition, but you also get hunger on land. So it counts for both. Fins. You get slowness 2 on land. This is obviously a conditioned power. Freak of nature. You only have 8 hearts. This is a passive power. Unwieldy. You can't use a shield. This is a passive power. And so, this is important for balance. If you have a bunch of passive powers / passive abilities for your upsides, and then a bunch of conditioned powers for your downsides, your origin isn't going to be balanced. You should try to have as many conditioned powers for your upsides as you do for your downsides. Keeping track of that while making. Of course, it's usually easier to make the upsides before the downsides, but don't be discouraged from, as you're doing it, going back and changing certain things, because balance is very important in Origin. As you can see here, we have a good amount. Conditioned powers, 2 for upsides, 2 for downsides. Passive powers, 3 for upsides, 4 for downsides. Now, of course, this downside and this downside do actually count as the same one. So yeah, it's pretty even. It's basically 3 and 3. It's basically 2 and 2. It's just a little bit wonky when they're both the same. There are no active abilities. Now, active abilities are the strongest thing you can have in an Origin, because it's just you press a button, you can do something really cool, really powerful, really fun. All that's there is a cooldown. But for the conditioned abilities, a little bit less powerful. So you're probably asking yourself, well, that's all cool and fun, but how do I get to conceptualizing my origin now? Well, here's what I recommend doing. Think of a theme. Okay, a theme that you want your origin to be revolved around, or think of a power. One of those that you want your origin to revolve around. And then build up on that using everything that I just talked about. Think about what's possible. Think about balance. Make sure you have some backups while you're doing this, because you're going to need some backup powers just in case. And make sure you write everything down in a place where you won't forget it all, because that will be very important. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like me to cover how to code in Origin, please let me know by commenting. If you could, please leave a like and subscribe. Would really appreciate it. And have a good one.